Hello and welcome to this video on the subject of colour balance. My name's Barry Beckham. When we talk about colour balance in photography and also image editing, we're generally talking about a global shift in all the colours of our image, not just one. For example, if we open up an image with an unmistakable blue cast, the colour shift towards blue isn't just affecting the blue colours, it's affecting every colour in the image. If the blue isn't right, then the rest of the colours are not right either, because the balance has shifted. If we correct the tendency towards blue here, then all the other colours are corrected as well. At the shooting stage, we refer to this as white balance. But those settings that we see on our camera, such as cloudy, dull, tungsten, fluorescent and auto white balance, they're all irrelevant when we shoot raw images because we can adjust colour balance after the image is shot. Personally, I tend to use auto white balance all of the time, and I adjust what I want in Adobe Camera Raw at the editing stage. Here I have some examples of images where the balance of colour is clearly wrong. Now sometimes it's caused by a very cloudy day where the image can look quite blue under those circumstances. It could be a dawn or dusk shot, which often tend to show a blue cast too. Other times, if you look at the images down at the bottom left, which were taken in the British Museum, the colour shift is probably affected by the light coming through the glass roof and the colour of that roof, and sometimes it's indoor lighting, such as we see over on the right hand side with the cathedral shot. Now there's a few ways we can adjust colour balance. Let's start by looking at the white balance presets in Adobe Camera Raw. Now they're going to be much the same that we see on our camera, and these allow us to change the white balance at this editing stage. We're looking at Adobe Camera Raw. We've got the Basic tab open, and I'd like to draw your attention to the white balance here, the panel that says As Shot, and the options we can see within that panel. Now let's just assume for a moment that this was shot on a cloudy day, and it was that which was causing the blue cast. So let's select cloudy, and we can see the colour balance is much improved, but it's not perfect. Of course, I suppose I could go back into the drop down panel and I could try all of these one at a time and see what effect it has. But I think there's a slightly better way. So let me reset this back to As Shot so we see the image as we first opened it. If I go back to that drop down menu once again, if you can just pay attention to these two sliders when I select cloudy, you'll notice they jump to a completely different position. Well, of course that's exactly what's happening. The white balance is being adjusted, and that involves a change of both the tint and the temperature. Once again I'll reset to As Shot. So we do have the opportunity to adjust colour balance more manually by just moving maybe the temperature slider more to the right, and we can see how the image is now coming much closer to what we would expect to see. Here, as you can see, I've opened up a different image, a seascape shot in the evening. I think I'm right in saying that the sun had actually just gone below the horizon, and we've got a distinct blue cast. Now the problem with colour balance, and the reason we have to address it fairly early when we're adjusting images in our image editor, is that if I wanted to put just a little extra colour into this picture, if I just move the vibrance up just a tiny amount, then the blue gets far worse. And whenever we see the sea and the waves breaking, we certainly don't see them as blue as they're shown here. So we need to correct them. Now we can double click any of these sliders and they'll snap back to their original position. So I've got the opportunity here to go to my white balance and those drop down menus. I've got the opportunity to ignore those and just use the temperature and tint. Or of course I could set the white balance from the drop down menu, which may take me 7/10 of the way towards the correct colour, and then adjust it manually with a bit of personal choice in there as well. But there is another option which I think is quick, simple, and 99 times out of 100 very effective. Now just before I make this change, think back to that colour card we saw a few moments ago. Remember that if one of the colours has a colour shift, the colour balance is wrong in any one of those colours, then it's wrong everywhere. So if the colours which are the more cool colours in this image are badly wrong, then so are the warm colours too. We need to go way up to the top left of Adobe Camera Raw, and there's the tool that we need. It's called the White Balance tool. You'll notice there was or is a keyboard shortcut, just using the letter I on the keyboard, and a little eyedropper appears. When it does, what we need to do is to look around the image for an area that contains detail. We do not want to click on an area that is completely devoid of any pixels, like a burnt out white area. But down here where we can see water detail, if I just select what I think should be a neutral colour where the water is breaking, and I click just once, there's our colour balance fixed with one simple click. And it's even improved the evening colours in the sky, which of course we can continue and improve still further. Now when you select the eyedropper tool, don't worry if you click down in the wrong place. If you do, you'll get all sorts of weird colours sometimes cropping up. But it doesn't matter, because you can click around and find the best spot to give you the colour balance which looks natural to you. But of course we don't have to accept it totally. This was an evening shot. So if I wanted to improve the temperature a little bit, I've got a little way to go here, so I could select the eyedropper tool, correct the colour balance, but then say, but I have a preference here for the image to be slightly warmer, and I could increase the temperature a little bit, or I could choose to take it down a little bit. Whatever is my choice. Photography, remember, is an art. So coming back to my British Museum, let's go to my white balance tool and select it. I can click, I think, almost anywhere here. Let's just try almost in the center there. And all I really need, I think, is a little more exposure, maybe a little highlight, maybe some whites, and suddenly we've got a sparkling shot. Here I have another seascape that has all the same problems as the first for the same reasons. I'd like to draw your attention to the area around here. This is a raw file that's not been touched. We've got the green of the Pacific Ocean along here, but we can't see it because it's overridden by blue. Remember, because the blue is wrong, then all the colours are shifted accordingly. So with my eyedropper tool, all I need to do is exactly the same as before. Select a section of water that contains detail that should be neutral and click. And there we have it. And straight away, before I put any colour into this image at all, we start to see the green of the sea just creeping through. And of course, we can improve that too. Here we have an image taken in the British Museum. And here, I think we have almost a tendency to blue and maybe even green. It's almost certainly caused by the light coming through the glass panels in the roof, but of course we didn't see it like that when we actually pressed the shutter button. So with the eyedropper tool selected, the white balance tool, let's just click into one of those shapes in the roof, and we've got an instant result. Once again, all we need here is maybe a little bit of exposure, maybe a tiny bit of highlights, a little bit of whites, maybe a little bit of black, and a little bit of colour, and suddenly we've got a great shot. Now, we've been looking quite a bit at images with a blue cast because they seem to be a little more common. But we can go the other way, and here we've got one with a very warm colour balance. Now, sometimes that can work in our favour. We may look at the warm colour balance and say, I actually quite like it. But we can correct it when it's either too much or we want the colours correct. And we do it in exactly the same way. We can pick up that white balance tool. We can look for a neutral position here, somewhere around here perhaps, and click. That is a little bit more like what we actually saw when we photographed inside that cathedral. Maybe I didn't click in the perfect spot, because if you look up at the temperature on the right hand side, you can see that the blue temperature is quite low. So remember what I said, we can choose another location and click again, and there I've warmed it up a bit more. But like before, we can use the white balance tool to get us 7/10 of the way there. Then if we want to put a little bit of a personal colour bias in by just warming it very slightly, then of course we've got the opportunity to do that too. But the most important thing is to correct this before we start to do any of the other editing, because when and if we increase the vibrance, we need the colours to be appealing and more or less accurate. Now, I've moved in camera club circles for many years, and I see this problem every single time there's a digital competition, which is disappointing given how easy it is to fix. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Of course you have, you've stayed to the end. But if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to check out our link below for Photoshop for photographers.